I saw Akash Varathan tweeted a clip of Jonathan Alexander, who covers the Panthers for the Charlotte Observer, talking about the Panthers quarterback situation. And what he said was, I think one of the Panthers QBs, when it's all said and done, is going to be either Jimmy Garoppolo or Baker Mayfield. They've been opening up cap space so they can be prepared to bring one of those guys on. And I think that's what they're going to do. I think it's reasonable to think they prefer Jimmy G. So as we talk on Thursday, 2 weeks before the draft, are we 2 weeks away from Garoppolo getting traded to the Panthers? Jimmy still's not, we said July is when he can start throwing probably. But the Panthers prefer Garoppolo. The Panthers have the 6th pick in the draft. I saw a story. Someone suggested earlier, someone who covers the team, that, they wouldn't take a quarterback at 6 because it's just bad value, but they could move back in the first round and take a quarterback. So what the Panthers do in 2 weeks in the first round is very important. Very important.
And they probably don't want to pull the trigger on anything until the landscape of the draft plays itself out.
Totally.
Because you would say if they are interested in Jim Garoppolo, that the move would be, if the draft plays itself out and you don't acquire one of the top quarterbacks, who, again, it's all relative, top quarterbacks, like, is that guy even good enough? Maybe you end up with a guy in the second round that you like, but you would want Garoppolo, even if he can't throw, to be around your offensive coordinator. And his offensive coordinator, a lot of people make fun of this guy because his look has changed several times, McAdoo. And I saw someone, he was at a pro day and he had like another look. And people were like, this guy's incredible. He's got all these different looks. Part of it's like his hair, his facial hair. But he's easy to make fun of because of what happened with New York. I think he was always well thought of in Green Bay. And remember, when he was the offensive coordinator, I think his first year in New York, Eli had one of his best seasons of all time. It was like Odell, Victor Cruz, Sterling Shepard. Like they were fucking good. And he might be a pretty good offensive coordinator. And you would go, well, he's worked with Eli. He's worked with Rodgers. Maybe he just wants a pro. And I would imagine if your rule, like who's he most comfortable with, like your success is going to be tied to this coach, right? Obviously, you're going to
rule your success is going to be tied to the offensive coordinator, you're saying.
Yeah, if McAdoo goes banging the table for whoever, and you kind of, you're somewhat not indifferent, but like you could be swayed either way, I would lean with him, who he feels the most comfortable in his offense can do the best. Because you would say, now thinking back, like some of those Eli teams, Eli was a good deep ball thrower. And he had Odell, and they were bombing away. And you would say Rodgers, like in McCarthy's heyday, it felt like they were slinging it around. Is Jimmy Garoppolo now their personnel, right? Is DJ Moore's a good player? McCaffrey is always the X factor, right? Because if he plays a lot, he's a very easy guy for any quarterback to play with.
Kind of like Debo.
Well, yeah, definitely. But you throw the ball to him a shitload just right at the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Jimmy's good at that.
Yeah,
but Jimmy's not a bombs away quarterback. It's just
he's not. But
Baker would be more suited to do that if they were, the quarterbacks on the market.
But I also think if you're to go back to what Michael Lombardi said about drafting a quarterback, if you're the Panthers high, doesn't save Matt Rule's job. If you're Matt Rule, you got 1 year to save your job. These are your options: rookie, Darnold, Baker, Jimmy, and we can nitpick Jimmy, and we do all the time. But if he doesn't feel safe with Baker from a personality standpoint, I'd be scared. Now, Baker has an injury that he dealt with last year. Jimmy gets hurt a lot. Jimmy has been to the NFC Championship game twice in 3 years.
Not bad.
Again, now we know it's not that simple, but
did throw 8 balls in an NFC Championship.
Yes. Yeah, but he went to the Super Bowl that year. So
I don't think it'll ever be duplicated again. Playoff win. You could argue just a playoff game in general. Definitely an AFC or NFC championship game. 8 completions and a win. Or 8 attempts. It was 6 completions.
Not counting a pick 6. So pick 6 or just a pick? Pick 6.
Jimmy in the Packer game?
Oh no, sorry. I'm thinking of the Vikings game. So I can understand from Rule's standpoint. Now there's a financial element to this. Like part of what Jonathan Alexander from the Charlotte Observer also said was, are they not, whoever is sending Baker or Jimmy, someone's going to have to offset that cost, which either means you pay some of the salary or maybe you take Sam Darnold back, which we've
Do you
talked
feel
about.
you know about more newspapers because you cover sports for a living? I just feel like all these
1,000,000%.
newspapers, I've heard of them all.
1,000,000%, without question.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Don't wanna
And
get off
radio
topic.
stations like
I just feel like
WWNO in New Orleans.
as someone who's never been to Charlotte, I've probably said the word Charlotte Observer or have written about Charlotte Observer or have heard Charlotte Observer so many times in my life over the last like decade. It's stupid.
He didn't throw a pick six in the Vikings game. What was
No,
the
he
pick
threw
right
a,
before
he,
halftime?
no, he threw a pick to Eric Kendricks. He didn't
Okay, he didn't
score, but it was a
return it.
bad.
Okay, that
Yeah,
was my
the
question.
Vikings only scored the one time. I think it might have led to a field goal.
Field goal
but
actually right before the half. Good call. So, you know, I do think it makes sense. Now, the question is, if you're the Panthers, are you so desperate that you would do it on draft day or the Friday of the second and third round before Jimmy Garoppolo is fully recovered? I don't know.
that's
You
why
might be.
But I
So
think you
it's-
want it. I think you want to get him in and around your guy, right?
So you would do it, you know.
If you wanted Jimmy Garoppolo, to me, once that first round passes, and
You
either
can't wait
take a guy
another
or
3
not.
months, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because to me, you can still take, like, let's say Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or one of those guys in the second round, and you take a guy in the second round. To me, that doesn't preclude you from getting Jimmy then, right?
No, but I also think if you're getting Jimmy, you're trying to win right now. It might be that your owner tells you need to draft a quarterback in the second round. But if you're
That's what I'm
trying to,
saying.
if you're all in on 2022, like
They
you
could do
draft
both.
somebody else, probably,
Yeah.
right? Drafting a quarterback in the second round to be your backup is something people.
Oh, you're saying and passing on a guy that could immediately start at corner, or offensive guard, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I'm saying guys with job security do that. Guys without job security don't draft second round quarterbacks to be backups. Guys who have to win this year.
I do think immediately for the Niner thing, like, would they want them to include Sam Darnold on the 49ers?
Yeah, they might.
Right.
They might want that. And I don't love that idea because I don't think he's not turning into a traded asset for you.
Do you know what's
Right.
weird is I watched some clips he was on with Compton and Luan, busting with the boys in the
Yeah.
bus in Nashville. He is such a likable,
I
you know.
know.
I mean,
I know.
you just watch him, you go,
Really
God,
is.
this is really what you want. And sometimes that really likable, high level guy, like, this guy's never going to live up to what I think people wanted, even though me and you push back on like the comparisons to Steve Young and stuff. Marcus Mariota is going to have a 15-year NFL career, isn't he? Marcus Mariota is going to play in the NFL for a long time. Now, Darnold, I do think Mariota feels like I'm much more under control as a backup bridge starter, where Darnold's like, does this guy even know where to throw it? So if he can kind of get into a situation where, and we've talked about this, the money, I don't love paying a guy $18 million, but like the money's the money. Like if you're willing to Jimmy Garoppolo, flip him, I'm not going to nitpick you. I'm not opposed to like bring him in, high level guy. And I think unlike for Baker or sometimes older guys that have had a little success where it's like they're not quite ready to be a backup, where Mariota, for example, it was just easy for him to just kind of transition that. And it's been a smooth transition. Now he's going to get a chance to, I'd say, resurrect his career if he has a solid year in Atlanta. All of a sudden he's viewed at maybe like a starter again. But Sam Darnold could use Kyle, and maybe depending on, I mean, again, his film's really bad, so it would have to be based on like what the Niners, and they definitely did, research on this guy, what they thought of him. I'm not opposed to doing if you're going to get rid of Jimmy.
Well, here's what I think happens there. We've talked about that a few times. I think you could get Carolina to include I don't think it's a 1-for-1 trade. I think Carolina then includes a pick that you get out of the deal as well if you're the 49ers. Because while Carolina is taking Jimmy's 27, like you're taking a quarterback that they don't want, which same boat kind of, it's making $18 million. Now, while both are overpaid, you'd say Jimmy at least is a starting quarterback.
So basically, they're just adding $9 million to their salary cap if you did a swap like that. So could you get Jimmy for Sam Darnold in a fourth or something?
Yeah, something. I think you end up with something like that. Because then what they end up trading is, because they would rather do that than send you like a sixth straight up for Jimmy? I think they would, because they don't want to spend 18 on Sam and 27 on Jimmy. That's not.
Well, then they still have to unload Sam, right?
Right. So I mean, hell, maybe could you get a late third out of them? I don't know if they have a comp pick. Could you get something out of them? I think you could. and then it makes that more palatable. And then
could you get the
maybe,
following year? Like,
Yeah,
could you do something like it?
well,
Because the Niners already have a second and third. Could you do like, how about your 2023 third or something like that? Would you do that?
yeah.
They could suck again.
I mean, you do it in a heartbeat if you're the Niners, I think. I would definitely take Sam then. And does Sam want to become a starter? Yeah. Okay. But if you think there's any chance of him being good, you are going to need a backup quarterback that you think can win you a couple games this year.
Yeah.
Right? I believe that. If Trey Lance is your starter, I'm not saying Trey Lance is 100% missing a game. I'm just saying in the short amount of time we saw Trey last year, he got hurt.
Doesn't it feel like he's kind of in that position now that Mariota found himself in, Jameis found himself in, ate his pride, literally, and went to be Drew Brees' backup. Teddy, for a second, went to be Drew Brees' backup, and it just kind of changed their careers. I mean, Mariota's now a starter. Jameis Winston's a starter, right? Teddy got paid a bunch by Carolina, and they got to start again in Denver. Like, you can take a step back sometimes when you're in this weird spot Sam's in, and it just shit has not gone right. Some of it's self-inflicted, but a lot of it was out of your control, to then maybe take 2 steps forward. And if you're the Niners, like, sometimes you got to do these type moves.
And best case for you, while you pay him 18, you like him. He never has to play, which means kind of like that Mariota year. It was different. They had control over Mariota, but
they signed him to a 2-year contract.
But and then maybe if you like him, he's your backup quarterback the next year if no one else signs him for $6 million.
But do you remember too when they signed Mariota? I thought Mayock. I mean, it was just, he was right. He's like, the unique part about this, when we told Marcus, like, we're interested, we want you to come here, we weren't making this up. He knew where we stood because when he was coming out, we were both media guys and we both loved him. So if Sam Darnold, and I think Mariota was smart to make that move, right? 2 guys that believed in him, and that was good for his career those 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, if the Niners did want to do this move, that would mean they like you. Sometimes you got to go to a place where, like, wherever Baker ends up, it's going to feel like, do they really like him? Are they a little desperate? Sometimes it's just good as a player to go, this guy wants me. This place wants me on their team. That's a big deal. Sometimes I'd argue in life, you want to be professionally where people have your back and are rooting for your interest. I think Andy has been fantastic at that in his career, with just like being supportive of, like, you come here, like, I'm invested in you. I loved you coming out in the draft. And he's made so many people money.
I believe in you, and I want to prove myself right.
Part of it, yeah. Like, I think when you go to Bill, it's like, you're coming here to win, I'll just get rid of you after. But like a lot of these coaches, I think when you hear like Mike Tomlin or forever Sean Payton was like this, once they kind of get fired up on a guy like that's getting their second chance with them, you're like, God, this guy's fucking all in.
Well, Alex Smith going to Kansas City is a great example.